Today, I would like to talk about ARPA-H, the new Advanced Research Projects Agency. We are a startup agency. We are a little bit over a year old, and our director started last October. So from a technical perspective, our technical staff just started joining from February on. I was the first office director to join on the same day as our first program manager. So we are very new and rapidly growing. So I'm going to talk a bit today about the ARPA-H mission, what makes us unique in the health ecosystem, and different ways to become involved in both ARPA-H research and the community. So on this slide, you can see our mission statement, which is accelerating better health outcomes for everyone. There's a couple different aspects to that mission. One is the accelerating piece. So we're interested in advanced research, things that are saying, how can we invest in research so that things that might otherwise take a decade or two, we can do in maybe 3 or 4 years. So we want to be very forward-looking. We're interested in improving health outcomes. So at the end of the day, we want research and technologies that help people in the real world. So while we do appreciate a lot of the academic foundations, at the end of the day, what our agency is interested in is taking those scientific breakthroughs and saying, okay, how can we use that in order to help people in the real world? And then there's a for everyone component, where we are interested not just in developing these novel new technologies, but making sure that they are reaching the patient populations that need them. So we're interested in these aspects of access and affordability as well. So the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health was started by President Biden recently. And one of the reasons that I like to show this quote is that it talks about the ways in which ARPA-H is intended to complement the other organizations in the health ecosystem. So specifically, ARPA-H will pursue ideas that break the mold on how we normally support fundamental research and commercial products. So what that means is that ARPA-H is intended to complement some of the important agencies like NIH and the various institutes and centers there that work on the longitudinal, incredibly important scientific biomedical research. We're supposed to fill gaps that are not readily filled by those existing health funding organizations. And we're also supposed to complement what's happening in the commercial sector. So specifically looking for areas where perhaps there's a technology that's quite promising, but it is too risky or too far off for venture capital investment just yet. But you could imagine a few proof of concept demonstrations and a bit of targeted work to make it so that novel technology could show enough evidence of success that it would be ready for commercial investment. Okay, we talked a little bit about the mission on the first slide. So accelerate better health outcomes for everyone. So we are very interested in taking technology and helping to improve the reality for patients and clinicians and other members of the health ecosystem. ARPA-H is unique in the way that it's situated inside of HHS. So administratively, we're part of the National Institutes of Health, yet our director reports directly to the HHS secretary. So what that means is that we have a certain amount of autonomy. We have different types of business model that's modeled after the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. So this is DARPA, who created the foundational technology behind the internet, GPS, self-driving cars, the Moderna vaccine. And we're bringing that business model into the healthcare sector. We do currently have a 2.5 billion initial appropriations with an independent budget, and we're anticipating that we will continue to grow as an agency in the next few years. So ARPA-H has a number of unique attributes that have to do with this idea of pulling in the ARPA business model into the healthcare sector. So the first is that the decision-making about where to invest is very bottoms up. So we hire program managers who come in with ideas and a deep technical understanding of their field, and they will propose an area and a novel approach to a large problem in the space. And the areas in which we invest are these ideas that our program managers are bringing to ARPA-H. So it's a very bottoms up type of endeavor. We do have accelerated contracting mechanisms. So in contrast to other parts of the government where there might be quite a bit of delays, we are trying and striving constantly to make it so that we can get things started much more efficiently. It's a very lean and nimble organization, and we do have special flexibility in hiring. So we're not tied to the normal, folks are familiar, the normal GS schedule. Instead, we have a flexible hiring authority that can go up to the president's total compensation for folks at different levels of the command chain. So ARPA-H is working actively to build partnerships and relationships with folks across the health ecosystem. So our customer groups are really the public healthcare providers and patient groups. So anyone who needs to interact with the health system and who might benefit from new technologies and innovation to make that a more seamless process and would benefit from new types of approaches to improve health outcomes. Then we also have folks that act as performers. So these are the groups that perform research on our programs in order to develop new breakthrough technologies and push the envelope on different types of innovation. So they can range from across academia, small companies, large companies, including patient groups, nonprofits, hospital systems, et cetera. And then we also have a number of stakeholders, including groups like private investors who may be interested in commercializing technologies coming out of ARPA-H down the road, as well as different federal partners, including the NIH, where we can leverage and build on different types of advances, and our federal partners that have more of a regulatory role. So we are setting up strong connections with organizations like FDA and CMS and ONC to make it so that as we're developing a new technology, if there is not an existing regulatory pathway in order to have it reach a market, we are working with those partners to think about and develop frameworks for safety regulations and things like payment from the early stages of technology development. In terms of the organizational attributes, the program managers, the folks that are coming in with those great new ideas about revolutionary breakthrough technologies, they are really the nucleus of the organization. So the organization is set up to make it very streamlined for somebody to come in with an idea about a new type of approach that really pushes the envelope. But my gosh, if it works, it's going to have a profoundly important impact on the healthcare ecosystem. we're set up to help folks come in quickly and get the funding and resources in order to be able to execute and try that vision, and see whether it can work in a short period of time. We're very interested in revolutionary approaches, things that are going to create paradigm shifts or new types of breakthroughs that are going to change people's perception of what's possible on the biomedical or the healthcare front. We also give a huge amount of autonomy to our program managers. So the folks that are coming in with the novel ideas, they effectively are acting as CEOs of their program. They have a lot of autonomy in selecting who the performer base would be, so who they will bring on contract in order to try and meet those ambitious goals that the program manager has set out, whether that be a set of academic performers, different types of companies, or some mix thereof. And then importantly, our program managers all have term limits. Folks come in for an initial 3-year appointment with an optional renewal up to 6 years. And what this does is it allows ARPA-H to remain extremely agile and flexible. So since we're always hiring, we're always pulling in people with great new ideas, those term limits allow us to keep hiring on the edge of what's technically possible. So we can enter new emerging scientific fields very easily because we're always looking for folks that are coming in with a great new idea. In terms of ways to engage with ARPA-H, there's 3 that I want to highlight today. One is through broad agency announcements. And these are funding opportunities. So if you are interested in either participating in a program where the program manager is defining a clear goal. So for example, we have a program out right now on making it significantly easier to treat osteoarthritis. So making it so that people would no longer need knee or hip surgery because they could instead have an injection that would regenerate bone and cartilage and remove the need to replace your knee or hip. So folks can propose to that type of very goal-oriented program, or we also have what's called an open broad agency announcement now, where especially in these first couple of years, we're interested in principal investigators coming in with their own ideas that may be quite grand and ambitious and revolutionary. And we're interested in PIs building a comprehensive team to address some real challenges in the healthcare space. So I'd love to talk more about folks' ideas there. The second important way in which folks can become involved is to either become or recommend a program manager. So this would be a person coming in with a great new revolutionary idea who can make a strong argument about why the problem space is important, what are the limitations of the current state of the art that keep us from achieving this grand vision, and what's new about the technical approach that would make it possible for us to solve the problem in a different, novel, new way. And then finally, folks can also join our hub and spoke network. So this is something where it's more of a forecasting, letting folks know that in the fall, probably around mid-September, we'll be making a series of announcements for a couple different nationwide networks that we're building for 2 purposes. One is to test and evaluate different types of ARPA-H technologies. So we're calling that our customer experience hub. We're going to use that to collect information from patients and clinicians and other members of the healthcare sector to make sure whatever types of technologies and solutions that we're developing are meeting people where they are, and we're developing new innovations that people actually want to use. This will also include things like accelerated clinical trials. So there's a lot of interest in having both traditional and non-traditional organizations that can assist with things like clinical trials and also the testing of different types of technologies that might go through an IRB process or something like that. And then there's a second network, the Investor Catalyst Network, that's much more focused on how do we give researchers the tools that they need for their technology to survive in the wild. So this can include things like entrepreneurs in residence and different types of launch lab capabilities, folks that venture capital folks that might want to invest in different new technologies coming out of ARPA-H, and also folks that have expertise in the regulatory side to help researchers go through the process of bringing their new technologies to market. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about the programs and the program managers and what that looks like. This is a very unique aspect of the ARPA model. So the program managers come into ARPA-H for a term of between 3 and 6 years, and they will start a number of programs that on average tend to be around 3 or 4 years. And each program manager might start a few programs while they're at ARPA-H. And these are really the folks that are bringing in these new breakthrough ideas that are driving the direction of the agency. In terms of what we're looking for in program managers, we're looking for folks that have a serious drive, no fear of failure, and have a lot of technical honesty, because we want to be really kind of pushing the envelope on what's possible. And we want folks that are able to both be curious when things aren't working as expected, and be able to make some technically honest assessments of when to keep on going down a particular path and when to take those lessons learned and pivot to something else. We're also interested in folks at all aspects or all parts of your career. So folks often come to an ARPA organization early on, especially if they're in a new upcoming area. And we also get folks that are coming kind of at the end of their career as a capstone in order to accomplish, a goal that has been developing for potentially a couple decades. And we'll really get folks anywhere in between. One of the key driving elements is that folks will have identified this problem space and this area where they just want to solve this problem, and they will relentlessly move toward changing their field or their discipline. In terms of what we're looking for in new programs, in the way in which we are working with program managers, candidates to see if they're a good fit, is answers to these Hallmeyer questions. So the Hallmeyer questions are a way for us to evaluate whether a new idea is really innovative, has the potential to have some type of breakthrough in the next, say, 3 to 4 years or 3 to 5 years. So the first three are the ones that I'd like to highlight. So the first one's about what you're trying to do and what problem you're trying to solve. So specifically, we want that to be detailed. Something more than it'd be great to cure cancer, but instead we're interested in looking at tumor-based cancers, which account for 80% of all cancers. And we have a particular approach, or, I'm proposing a particular approach that could save X billions of dollars in whatever type of treatment or what have you. So we're looking for some detail about the specificity and the potential impact of the problem that's being carved out there that speak to why that problem's important. We also want folks to come in with a clear set of statements about how it's getting done right now and what the limitations are of those present approaches. So what are the technical gaps that this program's going to assess? And for that second question, it can be important to highlight both the current state of practice and the current state of the art, because sometimes those things are different. And then finally, what is new about the approach? This is where we want to hear what's the revolutionary new idea that's going to change the world. And why do we think it's successful? Is there a new material that's been developed that we can use to create a new type of medical device? Is there some new biological breakthrough that's happened in an academic lab? And my gosh, if we use this for some type of cell therapy manufacturing, it's going to revolutionize the field. We want that evidence that something exists in the ecosystem that leads us to believe that taking putting this investment in this new revolutionary idea has a chance of succeeding. And then the other questions are about who it's going to impact if the program's successful, what are the risks, how long might that program take, and how will you measure success? In terms of the process that the program managers go through, folks will come in identifying that challenge and just as noted in the Hallmeyer document, making strong arguments that you really can't, the industry or the sector is not going to solve it if we just continue having the members of the community continue doing what they've already been doing. So we needed a strong argument that without ARPA-H, this change that folks are proposing is not going to happen. And then the program managers will then launch the program by publishing a broad agency announcement that talks about the different types of technical areas, so the different types of experts and the goals that we would want to achieve in order to move toward that larger vision. And then based on proposals that the program manager receives, the program manager will select a portfolio of performers. Often the type of portfolio that we're looking for is one that's risk balanced. So instead of hiring, say, a single company to go toward, say, a manufacturing goal or some type of new therapy or something like that, maybe there's 3 or 4 different technical approaches that you might be able to take to accomplish the same goal. So an ARPA program will often select best-in-class proposals for each of those 3 or 4 different approaches so that you're investigating which ones work well and when. Then throughout the program, the program manager and the evaluation team will be using metrics in order to assess what's working well, when things are succeeding, when they're failing, and why. So that ultimately we can tell which approaches are most promising, or potentially what set of approaches need to be aggregated into a more comprehensive solution, because really, some work well in some setting and others work well in another. So really we need to have an integrated system that incorporates several different types of approaches. So then as the program matures, you'll identify which of those techniques are most promising. And the ultimate goal of the program is to transition into something that will help people in the real world. So looking at how that technology will survive in the wild. And we have a specific office, the Project Accelerator Transition Innovation Office. It just rolls off the tongue, that focuses on this transition, and will work with the program managers throughout in order to help pave the way for the technology to survive in the wild. So this is an office where for the folks on the venture capital side, this office is in the process of setting up those hub and spoke networks that I had spoken about a few slides ago, including the Investor Catalyst one. So I would anticipate some announcements from this office about how to get more involved, probably starting sometime early fall. We have had our first program launch. It's Nitro. It's on new ways to treat osteoarthritis to make it so that folks don't need knee or hip surgery anymore by having new types of technologies that can regenerate bone or cartilage. And then in the unlikely event or unfortunate event that folks do have some type of accident where they do need a new joint, it's also looking at how we can build replacement joints from human cells that don't need things like titanium plates in there. So there's just a few more days to apply, but you can go and look at that BAA to get an example of the type of program formulations that we'll have. And ultimately, we're ramping up so that probably sometime later this year, we'll start having about 1 to 2 programs, BAAs come out per month. Then we also have a number of different thrusts that we're soliciting ideas for through our open broad agency announcement. So this is if you are a principal investigator and you want to put together a proposal to ARPA-H, we are interested in proposals on any of these topics and really any other area that could help us improve health outcomes. So the first is Health Science Futures, which is really looking at those scientific foundations and saying, how can we expand our perception of what's possible on the biomedical front? So what are those revolutionary new biomedical breakthroughs that we need in order to treat disease in new ways? We're particularly interested in things like platform technologies that can treat a broad range of diseases. And if there's breakthroughs for specific diseases, especially those that maybe are not well funded right now, that's of course of interest too. We're also interested in scalable solutions. So this area is all around access and affordability. So perhaps we have an intervention that's already out there, already available, but it's not reaching the patient population, either because it's only available in an academic medical center, or perhaps it's a therapy that's too expensive, maybe $1 million a dose. So we're interested in things like novel manufacturing techniques that can bring down the cost of a therapeutic, or perhaps device miniaturization that can take some type of intervention that's only available in an academic medical center and make it so that it would be available in a home health setting. Our third area is proactive health. So this is prolonging periods of health and well-being. So are there technologies that can make it so that people can age in place in a more independent way? And are there different types of preventative medicine approaches that would make it so that we could detect the onset of disease early enough that we could reverse it and keep people from getting sick in the first place? And then finally, resilient systems. So building integrated healthcare systems. So this can get into things like electronic health record systems, the data systems for public health supply chains. How do we make that health ecosystem work much more effectively and robustly? So even if there are unexpected events, the system can continue to operate efficiently. This area also includes things that are socio-technical in nature. So, for example, how can we build technologies that make the communication between patients and clinicians more robust and resilient. And then throughout, you'll notice that each of these areas is pretty disease agnostic. That's how we're set up. Nonetheless, we are interested in both the diseases that are big. They infect lots of people, so cancer and diabetes and Alzheimer's and all of those well-known areas. And then we're also interested on the other side about diseases where we don't have an intervention, or perhaps the patient population is so small that the pharma industry or others are not financially incentivized to create interventions to help those patient populations. So we're interested in a whole range of different patient populations. So then just to reiterate different ways that you can work with us, we have the Open BAA. If you have a great new idea that you would like to propose, that's open now. We are very excited about folks building comprehensive teams to propose these new breakthrough transformative ideas. The Nitro BAA is out and closes imminently. And if you are interested in becoming a program manager or could recommend somebody, I'd love to talk with you about your ideas. We have a whole interview process where once folks submit some answers to those Hallmeyer questions, we'll work with folks to further refine the technical detail in order to turn it into a proposal that's likely to be quite successful inside the ARPA-H model. And then finally, we have that hub and spoke health innovation network. So that's our customer experience and our investor catalyst network. Look for new announcements on that come early fall. And then there are other ways if folks are interested in becoming a science, engineering, and technical advisor. So effectively helping stand up the agency and helping the program managers get things started. That type of role can be a great way to get involved with ARPA-H, learn more about the organization before, say applying to become a program manager. Then I like to end with this one. This present moment used to be the unimaginable future. It's a art installation at the Renwick Gallery, and it speaks to the part of the space that ARPA-H is lined up to be in.